Right, so this is about a little thing called the Sid City Social Club. There's a few people in from it tonight. Sid City Social Club was set up by Alexander Siddig, Dr. Bashir, Deep Space Nine, and Mel, who runs the site for us. I feel like I've got a winning crowd here. I will let them explain in a minute what's happened, but let me introduce on stage here, going from left to right, Rob Moriarty, who is an integral member of the team, and all of the videos that you're about to see, Rob has edited for us. He's our editing guy, he's a genius. Nanar something or other, is it? Nanar visitor, everybody, welcome to Nanar. Mr. Andy Robinson here. And Professor Mallory Knight here, who had a very interesting role for the team. So, I'm going to throw it now to the pre-record. Sid couldn't be here, we were trying to get him in on Zoom live, but he was filming, so we had to do the pre-record. So, I'm going to ask the first question to Sid and Mel, which is, Sid and Mel, how did Sid City Social Club come about?
Oh yeah, okay. Well, first I should welcome everyone to Destination Star Trek. I'm glad you could all make it. I am sorry that I can't be there in person because I am literally on the other side of the world in Melbourne. And it's probably a completely different time of day here to there. In fact, I know it is diametrically so. I know you're all going to have a lot of fun, even though it's kind of early in the morning for some of you night owls. Yeah, have some fun now.
All right, so how did we get started with this?
As far as I remember, and my memory is wobbly at best, I texted you or emailed you, Mel, that is, and said, something's going on here. This seems to be kind of serious. I feel at a loose end with what to do with my life. And I'm thinking of doing stuff like contact tracing or something like that. But Shana has refused to let me do that because at the time she thought that meant literally going from door to door and saying, were you in, Best Buy last week? As it turned out, you just have to make phone calls, would have been fine. But Mel said something along the lines of, leave it with me. I've got a feeling, I'm feeling a similar way. And I know there's something we can do with our tiny little 10-man fan base at Sid City. It might be 30. And then she came back a couple of days later and said, why don't we do a sort of scene, a kind of event, and have people log in. We hadn't figured out Zoom. We hadn't figured out how to deliver this, but we knew we had a few people at Sid City who would periodically check the message board to see what was going on. So they might notice that we would have a meeting, and that might evolve into something, which it eventually did. I don't know, what was it like for you, man?
It was serendipitous, honestly. I had an email in drafts to you saying, hey, looks like this is a big deal. What should we, I feel like we should do some sort of outreach to the fan community. Maybe just, originally I was envisioning something like you recording a message that we posted on the website. And then you were open to doing this interactive live event. And so we figured it out. We knocked around a bunch of ideas and tried some different platforms, and Zoom seemed to be the right, it's a good mix of being able to be protected, a safe space, but also open to anybody who knows how to find us. And so, so we did our first event on April 10th of 2020. It was a Friday afternoon. And Sid likes to say that it was only going to be 30 people. And I like to remind him that I laughed in his face It said, no, it will not. Seriously underestimating how many people want to see you. We had 66 people at the first meeting. And we have the Zoom room that we use maxes out at 100. So we've maxed out pretty much every time that we've done this. We added a second meeting on Tuesday nights after a couple of weeks so that we could get folks on, well, where Sid is now, on the Pacific Rim and the Antipodes. And we've been going ever since.
Oh yeah, I remember we talked long and hard about whether or not, what time of day we do it so that we get different people from different time zones, because we have friends in Australia, New Zealand, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have friends as far afield as like Nepal, and I mean that's crazy, isn't it? But it did snowball. It started off just that one day, and then we had to agonize over a second day, which is actually quite an agony because it was 2 hours, and then another 2 hours. So suddenly it kind of became 4. And I remember going, yeah, the one thing I'd like to do is talk to other people, not them talk to me. And that was probably the secret of it, actually, in terms of how the whole thing would work. It wasn't really just a bunch of people going, what happened in episode 5 of etc. So we found out a lot about all the folk who came and hung out.
Mm-hmm.
People were amazingly open.
And there so many incredible people came and shared their stories, and we got to know them, and this whole community coalesced. Yeah, it started out with, you had this vision of being able to have actual conversations with people, and it turned into more you interviewing them rather than them interviewing you, which I think is what happens a lot at conventions. And so this is a different experience for folks, and it's been amazing and eye-opening and faith in humanity restoring.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andy and Nanal, how did you two get involved?
I was invited. Sid said there's somebody who's writing some very decent script.
Obviously, we haven't worked together for nearly 20 years.
That's so typical. It's so typical. He's so pushy, and every time I try to say something. Anyway, no, and indeed, I think, do you remember the writer's name? I feel Matt. And the scripts were lovely. I mean, they really were, and it's not an easy thing, to find that rhythm and of that relationship, the Garrett Batchelor relationship, and the cadence of it, and at first I didn't know. I thought, oh Jesus, Zoom, man, how do you do that? And at the time I was struggling, because my university schedule was shut down and reduced to Zoom, and I was struggling teaching over Zoom. But it ended up being kind of this intimate sort of exchange, and it was like stepping back into an old comfortable pair of shoes. I did miss the fact that I didn't have my makeup, I must say. I really do. And I didn't think, and for a while I thought, I can't do this without the makeup. Somebody once hired me to do Garrick as a voiceover in a game. I couldn't do it without the makeup. I couldn't find the voice for Garrick. But eventually we did. And then, Nana and others joined, and it was like, well, here we go. And, the party is starting at another level.
And Nana, how did you come to be involved?
Siddig invited me to just be a part of the interviewing of people, and I was so deeply impressed with what was going on. And we were all physically distanced, and yet here was a connection. Here was such a good use of technology, and I saw people in little rooms in Russia and all over the globe connecting and talking about themselves, and it was a breakdown of what the usual experience is between all of us, and it was so deeply human, and I was so touched by it. And when they expanded the scripts, and included the rest of us, it was like play acting when you're a child. It's like, ooh, I'll put the light here, and what if I use this scarf? And it was all very rudimentary and wonderful because of that.
So that leads me very nicely into the next question from Sid and for you guys. And the question was, what was it like getting pretty much the entire Deep Space Nine cast back together again?
See, we haven't worked together for nearly 20 years, except for the odd meeting at conventions, but that doesn't kind of count as work. I mean, interpreting text is work, and it was lovely. I mean, everyone was so, the thing that was touching about it was that everyone was so enthusiastic, and they, you know, loved Matthew's scripts, and Armin, who is really difficult, you know, about that kind of thing, was over the moon, really happy. So getting, you know, everyone back together was like getting the band back together. It was lovely. I kind of know what it feels like now for, you know, rock groups to find their way back together 20 years later. It's fantastic.
So Andy and Lenore, what was it like being the Spice Girls, basically?
What was it like? What?
Being the Spice Girls, getting the band back together. What was it like for you guys working as a group together again?
Yeah, you know, we're actors, and we were, you know, it's so funny. I mean, you know, you work with people, you know, for 7 years, and there's an intimacy and there's a connection. And we got back in, and it was kind of like stepping back into an old place I used to live that I loved and I was very comfortable in. I mean, and seeing them again. I mean, the thing is, that's what also I love about these conventions, is running into people like Nana, and, you know, and rekindling our relationship and catching up and so forth. But working again in this very bizarre, you know, form. And I want to just follow up on what Nana said about it was because it's the whole context. It just wasn't, you know, us getting together and doing these plays. It was this whole Sid City thing of these people being very honest and very open about their lives. I mean, there was some incredible shit that went down in that thing that just incredibly moved me. I mean, and people sort of like speaking from the deepest part of their lives. And giving it up to this group. Like, it was astonishing.
Yeah. Well, I've always felt like we were an acting company, and that we could do just about anything, including, you know, Deep Space Nine, the opera. That's always been a dream of mine. I think it would make an incredible opera. I wouldn't be able to sing it, but Avery would. But it was like stepping into a pair of shoes that was so familiar. It's just fun. It's fun to collaborate with these people that I know so well. And yet, 20 years later, catch up to who they are now. It was wonderful.
And interestingly, there was one person that sort of made an appearance in Deep Space Nine, but sort of didn't. And that was Django, so Sid and Nana's son. So I asked Sid, what was it like, because they did a scene together, what was it like for Sid working with Django, his son, for the first time?
A dream nearly come true. I mean, I say a dream nearly come true because I would love to work with him and him to be paid to work with me by someone other than me. It would be wonderful. So, you know, I'm looking forward to the day. I know he's easily good enough, and I just think it's going to be, you know, it was a great. We don't have trouble. We don't have trouble working with each other. He's super professional, and that was something that was nice to find out. You know, he does what he's told, and he gets on with it, and he does prep, and he's not, you know, he's not caught out when we come to actually shoot it. But Django was right there every single time, and he was ready to rock and roll, and he did. He rocked and rolled. That was really lovely working with him. I look forward to doing it again.
So Nana, what was it like for you working with Django?
Well, When he was 4 years old, I did this home video for my father. It was a story about my father's life, and Django played my father at 4, because he was 4. So, and I remember having the camera up, and I told him what to do and what to say, and I went, oh no, he's an actor. He was so natural and good and nothing on top of it, and I was like, oh. And it's been interesting to watch his journey of finding himself as an actor or not, or what he wanted to do. It's never easy when both your parents are actors. So it was lovely. I know, don't tell him that I'm saying he's an actor, because he's got to find it himself if he wants to. But it was so fun. I mean, there's nothing better than working opposite someone that you know like that. It was so fun. I'd love to do it again.
And you kind of are with your podcasts as well. You kind of are with your podcasts. You and
Yes, Django and I are doing a podcast called Sunday Dinner, and it's wonderful because it's looking at life from such different generations, and it's a place. He doesn't do it. No, he does. He always has an issue that he's dealing with in his 25-year-old life that he brings to the table, and we interview people, and it's really so interesting to meet your son on this new level where you're no longer a caretaker, but at most a mentor and someone they deeply know. And it's been really, we just started it, but it's fascinating.
And so this is just for you, Nina, it's a surprise. I couldn't let it go, so I also asked Django what it was like working with his mom and dad for the first time. Here we go.
You know, aside from working with my parents, who I admire a lot, I think they're really cool. It was fun to kind of connect with the community in a more intimate way for the first time, because I'd sort of seen them, but from a distance. It was like I'm the baby, and you know, but yeah, being an adult, and also interacting in a scene or a creative way with all these amazing actors. It was actually really cool. And to I've obviously seen my parents both perform, but to kind of be in it with an audience was actually really fun and really inspiring. And it was no, but I told so many people, like, growing up, because I saw the episode. I saw the episode where there's there's some drums playing, and I a baby comes out, and I used to be like, oh cool, that must have been me, but I guess it wasn't. I think my mom says that she could clear it up if she'll clear it up for you guys.
Yeah.
So did I.
No, the baby covered with cream cheese and a strange red. No, that was not Django. That was a pro baby. Yeah.
That's almost exactly how he described it. It was like a stunt baby or something.
Yeah.
And it was the cream cheese, exactly that. So moving on slightly. So the next question I asked Sid was favourite memories that he had from the whole time he was doing Sid City. So this is
a question, but I think that probably the thing that surprised me most is just how open everybody was in a room full of people. I mean, everybody knows that we've got 100 people in Sid City, sometimes more if we open up the floodgates, get special permission, especially when we were doing Alone Together. And people were just so open, so willing to go into complicated areas of their life and discuss them. And sometimes that happened a lot because, that like Nana, for example, set an astonishing example by being incredibly open with everybody about her experiences. And I think that kind of got the ball rolling in a way, and people became more and more open about their experiences and how, because it was a very complex, it still is a very complicated time, the whole COVID thing. And really painful for a lot of people, and a lot of people were incredibly lonely, or had just finding out things about their family they never knew because of the divisiveness in politics right now. And people were incredibly open and caring of each other and provided a really safe environment which had nothing to do with me, by the way. It was the rest of the group. It only works if you know that the pillows you're going to land on are big enough. And the pillows that everyone had landed on, were landing on, allowed them to just jump off the building. And that was pretty touching, pretty great.
So now I'm going to throw it over to Rob, because I'm going to ask Rob, talking about sharing the stories. So, Rob, tell us about how you got involved, what Sid City meant for you, and how it's changed you. Let's do it this way. We did this the other night. Sorry.
So I first came across the social club actually on the evening of April 10th last year. I was about half an hour too late, I think, for the first meeting. So I thought, that's a nice idea. It's up next week, I might go along to it. And then a year and a half later, I'm kind of still there, and I've been there every Friday ever since. And I think listening to so many different stories was just such an eye-opener to begin with. But then the impact that it had on me, because we were talking about so many different themes, like disability, gender, identity, racism, all of those sorts of things. People were talking about various different issues that they were trying to resolve in their life, and I was thinking to myself, well, what's my issue if I have one at all? And it took me a while to think about it, but eventually it came down to one of trust, and not just trust in other people, but trust in myself, because I've never quite fully believed in myself. Anytime I do a bit of work, I kind of think, I can do so much better, or if someone wants to be my friend, it's almost like, well, why? I kind of put them on probation for 18 months. It's almost like they have to prove themselves. And I think the social club came along at the right time for me, because I've been on autopilot basically for the best part of about 23 years after an accident that put me in this wheelchair. And so I was able to stop and actually probably think about things for a while, to sleep, which is something that I think we've all done during lockdown. But then the club came along really at the right time for me, and kind of worked on a number of different levels. And I think first is getting to listen to so many different stories is just amazing and incredible, full stop. But then when you get to chat to someone like Sid, conventions like this, you might get to chat to people guys for like a minute or two at most, that kind of thing. But this is like 15 or 20 minutes of Sid really asking us quite in-depth questions. And so that's just amazing to begin with. That he might then remember even a fraction of that 3 or 4 months later, or even just remember your name. That's like mind-blowing, my brain's against the back of the wall here somewhere by now. And as he starts to kind of chat with you and kind of really give validation to your story, it really starts to rub off in you. And then he does that with everyone else. And he validates theirs, but he kind of becomes that kind of self-perpetuating validation that really just starts to impact on everyone. And then everyone else does it as well. So I think the impact it's had on me is that finally, for the first time I'm 40 now, I turned 40 back in September, I've actually got to the point where I know now that my story is something that's worthy of being told. I should be proud of it. I am good at the stuff that I do, and I think I've finally found that kind of inner peace in myself that I think I've always been looking for, and that would really come from having
And Mallory, how did you come to be involved with Sid City? And what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting story. So my dad had actually passed away in September of last year, and my dad was a huge, huge Trekkie. And so when he passed away, I started rewatching Star Trek, just kind of for nostalgia's sake, the memories. And one night I was just, I think I was laying in bed watching Star Trek and just started Googling what some of the actors were up to, and I stumbled across Sid City, and I thought, oh, this looks really cool. And so I joined and started attending, and it was really great. And this whole kind of thing, I'll talk a little bit later about what my involvement really looked like with Sid City. But it's meant a lot, and it's kind of felt like something that I'm doing for my dad, which has been really cool. And I actually I've been to one Star Trek convention ever when I was really small, because I used to I would live with my dad during the summers, and that was our thing. We would stay up till 9 o'clock and watch Star Trek on cable TV before bed. And he took me to a Star Trek convention when I was little, and this is the first time that I'd been back. And so it kind of feels like a really cool way to honor him. And I had actually had a necklace that I had put some of my dad's ashes in that I was going to bring today, but my luggage got left in the States. I should be arriving to the hotel right about now, so I'll probably run back and get my necklace and bring it back so I can wear it. Great to have a piece of it here with me. So it's really been very meaningful for me to be able to do that.
Yeah. We'll make sure your dad's here today, definitely. So the next question that I asked Sid was, what impact has Sid City had on him?
We have been impacted in many different ways, I think. First of all, I didn't know I could do this sort of thing. Sit and talk to people for hours and hours, because I'm famously, as you know, and some of my friends will know, pretty unsociable person. I'm a friend who isn't very friendly. You know, we've got really close mutual friend Paul Baisley. He writes to wish me happy birthday every year, and that's the only communication we have. I don't call him, even though I love him. So I'm famously unsociable. I'm learning a lot of stuff about social issues that I have never paid any attention to. Because they didn't affect me. I didn't coexist with them. A lot of sexual identity issues, or just identity issues in general. I mean, I've obviously grown up being not white, so that has been a thing, an identity issue. But there's many more, and we're lucky enough to have representatives from so many different elements of society that normally go unnoticed by most people like me. So I'm learning about those guys, and I'm learning about how to help them feel comfortable in my presence, which is really, really a privilege. So to have people talk to me about their experiences has been invaluable. And I think that's really it. It expands the soul. It nourishes, you know, the psyche. You think about, oh my goodness, those people have a really hard time, and there are ways to improve all our lives simultaneously, and that is basically by finding unifying themes, unifying elements. And the Zoom was a unifying element, because regardless of our politics, although it did, as I said, it kind of self-adjusted after a while. People who weren't politically sympathetic did find other things to do over the course of the year, and they didn't come back, mainly because they felt threatened, which is hilarious, in the most unthreatening room you will find on the planet. So yeah, just a very expansive experience. I think nourishing is probably the best.
And talking of which, Mallory ended up doing an academic study on the impact that Sid City have had on various people. And what would you say were your main findings from that?
Yes, excuse me for pulling up my notes on my phone. But yes, I'm a professor of social work in the States, and I do social science research, and I thought that this was a really cool opportunity. And so I took a look at how Sid City Social Club basically helped people through the pandemic, and how especially it helped those who found themselves just really isolated during quarantine. And so I kind of had three main findings of that study. The first was that it was a really big source of psychological support for a lot of the members. Those who were isolated, those who were going through job changes, those who were going through health issues, who were moving. It was the one constant thing that they had through all of that they could kind of fall back and rely on. And then it was just really encouraging to a lot of people in the club. So one person said, that's another reason why I think I come back. It's just so good for my psyche, let alone my heart and soul. It's good for my psyche just to go, and I think that's one of the ways it's saving my life. The environment, the environment of the community, the people of Sid City, that was one of the things that all of my participants talked about. And I had 25 participants from 7 different countries that participated in this study, just to kind of show you like how broad Sid City was. But they talked about the people, about the human connections that they made from all over the world, and how different we all are. And we're still able to come together in this social group and make connections and make friends from all over the world. One person said, I've met more people doing this than I think I've met the past 20 years. People that I want to be in touch with afterwards, and it's meant the universe to me. It's literally opened up the universe to me. We had Colin, who ran our post-quiz chats, which became very popular. So on Saturdays and Sundays, he would have these quizzes where we would all come, and after the quiz, we would stay for hours. I think the longest one lasted maybe 24 days sometimes, yes. When one time zone would go to bed, the people across the world were hopping on to keep the meeting going, and it was just incredible, an incredible way to get to know each other in that environment. And then just obviously the COVID support. So the social and emotional support that people were experiencing during isolation. It providing a stable routine during quarantine where people just didn't know, like, you know, we were just kind of in this weird void of space where no one knew, like, what was happening, going to happen, what am I doing, what year is it right now. It provided that one stable thing every Tuesday, every Friday. You know, we could come together and they had something to look forward to when they just really felt a real loss of control with everything else going on in their life. And it just being a really unique community. And I know we're strapped for time, so I think that's all I'll say. But ask me any questions afterwards if you're interested more about that study.
And Andy and Anar, would you say it's impacted you in any way, shape or form?
As I said before, just the connection and how to use the technology and how to reach out, and the difference between being physically isolated and socially and emotionally connected. It was such a clear example of what a couple of people can do to divert the energy and use it in a different way.
I think it's amazing, Mallory, what you've done. I mean, in terms of the study and then the way you expanded this community. Really, it's very impressive. You know, in my work as a teacher, you know, people think, okay, so you want to be an actor, you learn how to walk nice and talk nice and comb your hair and you know, put some stuff in your eyes so they sparkle and whatever. I mean, that's obviously a silly notion, but it's a complicated way of working, living. And if you want to become an actor, one of the things that has to happen is that you have to confront those areas of your identity that bedevil you, and the shame in one's life, the lack of self-esteem, the lack of self-value. Because you really, it's very hard to stand in front of a group of people if you're ashamed and you don't feel that you have value. And in Sid City, in those meetings, it was amazing how open people were, especially being bedeviled by the pandemic and the isolation that engendered. People confronting their demons and finding a community in which they were able to like express that and feel safe enough and supported enough by the environment to be able to do that. So that to me was immense value, and these thoughts occurred to me when I was listening to Mallory, because it was like this is the most, Star Trek, the ideal of Star Trek, this is really furthering that ideal in the best possible way.
So I'm going to skip the memories thing, which was basically Sid being surprised on his birthday. We managed to get Lord British to come along, who created the game Ultima Online, which Sid and I played together for like 7 years. And the creator came along and surprised him on his birthday. And when he turned up, he was like, you could see Sid going, who is this guy? Because he was dressed up as full Lord British gear. And then he realised he was the developer of this game, Ultima Online. I was like, oh my God! And he almost has a stroke. And as you watch the play-out video, you will see Sid's reaction happening. But I'm going to skip to the end now, just because of time. And I'm just going to play the final video, which was asking Sid and Mel, what's the future for Sid City?
I really don't know. I have absolutely no idea. This whole thing, if you'd asked me back in April 2020 what the next few weeks held for this whole thing, I wouldn't have known. And the fact that we're here a year and months later is shocking to both Mel and I. And we've really had to sort of figure out how to clear our social decks in order to make it work at all, to keep going, because we had a conversation about 6 months ago about right, we have to get back to life. The rest of the world is creeping out of this whole COVID comforter hell. And what are we going to do? And Mel has a real job, unlike me. And I do not know, although I'm sure that we both feel some kind of, we certainly have made a lot of friends, and some of whom kind of need us to be around for a little bit. So we will try and honor that for as much as possible, even though that, I'm filming and I'm not reliable anymore, and I was unreliable at the best of times. So who knows what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that the community part of it keeps going. So once Sid took off for Parts Unknown to film Shantram, we took it from twice a week. We were doing Tuesday nights and Friday afternoons, our local time. And now we're doing one Tuesday and one Friday a month, most of the time. Like we just, in October, we had an additional meeting because we had a Halloween party. But we feel like we didn't want to just stop cold turkey when, Sid got work and things started opening up again. But we knew that we needed to accommodate the fact that the real world is intruding. It's coming back. So we're doing a more limited engagement, as it were. But I mean, the community is still going strong, even without the two of us being as active as we were before. So
that's one of the cool things. One of the cool things is that there is a whole there's a bunch of splinter groups on Discourse and in various other areas that people just hang out normally without us being involved or instigating any meeting or being. So there are little factions that have all, kind of identity-based factions, basically, who have just splintered off and have started their own little kind of thing, which is pretty great.
Yes. And now they're getting to meet up in person. Some of them are there in the room, meeting up, enjoying Destination Star Trek after seeing each other on Zoom for the last 18 months.
That's right. And there was a bunch who met in Vegas. And you know what? One of the common themes to that is Andy. He was there both times.
Yep.
Thanks, Andy.
He's a good sport. You're a good sport, Andy.
So there you go, Andy. That's for you. And there was actually more prolific thanks from Sid on one of the other videos, which I haven't played, just because of time. So there's just a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Rob Moriarty, Minar Visitor, Andy Robinson, and Mallory Knight. Come on, big and cheer of America. Come on! Very cool. And if you want a bit more of Sid, in the screening room, I came up with a format which was interviewing Sid and asking questions about his favourite experiences in the 5 senses. And it's a quiz. So you have to work out which of his 3 experiences in each of the 5 senses is his #1 favourite. Now, I've known Sid a very long time. And doing that, I actually learned stuff about Sid I had no idea about. So it's very enlightening, and he's very open and honest on that. So that's happening at 12:15. Sid City is still going, and you can come along, sign up, Sid City Social Club. Sid will be there sometimes, but he's not filming. Shantram, he's becoming big mates with Charlie Hunnam at the moment, who's very lovely apparently, very lovely. And weirdly, I'm still doing quizzes. I don't know why, but I'm running those every so often. Which is a Facebook group you can also join. It's, I can't remember, it's called Collins Lockdown Quiz Society or something. So yeah, so I'm doing those as well. But you're more than welcome to come along, join out, hang out, but you never know, you might actually get tour director Sid as well. Have I missed anything? And we're going to leave, as we all leave, you can stay and watch the 5-minute trailer of the year of Sid City Social Club and what it means. And I think it's lovely, I really do, and Rob's edited it, so there you go. So we can play that one there, the Sid City Social Club trailer. Thank you very much, and good night.
Hello everybody, I'm and Mel. From here, I'm going to send it over to Sid.
Just so you guys know, you're all experimental guinea pigs. You're going to teach me how to do this.
First, we kind of had to decide what's our mission, what's the purpose of what we're going to do. And we ended up with this kind of talk radio style show that happens on Zoom twice a week.
And it was a real privilege to get to know people and their story. And they always start out by saying, my story is really boring compared to the last person. Then they're amazing and they've got something, and they're fascinating, wherever they work, whatever they do.
And I enjoy meeting fans.
Yeah, you talk to fans, which I love. I mean, you give time, you spend a lot of time.
This is such a wonderful thing that Siddig does, to think of all of you all over the world and to think where you are right now and what you're doing, and I'm in LA. This connection, it's amazing and wonderful. And
I was always trying to make Quark more of a three-dimensional character than what most people took him for.
Alone Together, a DS9 companion.
I know that when people are trying to keep a secret from me, so, I mean, hell, you don't know what I know.
You'd be surprised, and watch your language.
So happy to be back. It gives me so much joy, and it's getting all my cobwebs out, so when COVID's over, I can go try to get a paying job.
If that's the outcome, we're on board.
Message, what must I give to have a decent, uninterrupted conversation with my husband?
I'm together. We have a restaurant in Western Massachusetts. And
oh my goodness! This is your restaurant! There is a cookbook, and it's my favorite cookbook, and it was given to me, and it was signed by you guys.
I understand you have a little bit of history with the Ultima series and Lord British.
Oh, wow. I'm just getting inundated with some of my heroes. Colin and I spent 2 hours laughing hysterically because we couldn't board a boat in Ultima Online. We just couldn't figure it out. We kept jumping into the water.
Sid and I were playing at the same time when we were both on Deep Space Nine, but we didn't know each other was playing.
This project is 243 pages of food, art, family stories.
Oh my goodness.
That's really wonderful.
I'm by no means an expert chef, and I've got some PAs that can burn water given half a chance. We did try the miso chicken a couple of weeks ago, and either it didn't work or the PA didn't work. I'm not sure which.
Whatever the word is. Levitating teapot.
And this is a traditional Halloween prank.
Irena, listen to me now. Listen to me. Listen to Uncle Andy. You're just going to go there. I mean this from my heart. You're going to go there and you're going to play.
How is life?
My brain has died.
It's okay. I will lead you through this. And you couldn't not be in more generous arms than the arms of all these people.
This which secretive organisation recruited Dr. Bashir against his will to work for them.
I want to know if Sid remembers.
Yeah, Sid. What
Section 31.
Your first song this week, Rob. Your 3-second intro is this.
Climb of faith. Only love can hurt like this.
Oh my God!
I have 9 hours in Heathrow.
Realised that I forgot to pack a hairbrush. Problem solved.
Fast and gentle styling. That idea really appealed to me.
One of the biggest things was all the participants talked about how it was really a big source of psychological support. It's meant the universe to me. It's literally opened up the universe for me.
Is there anything in your mind that you can talk about that touched you about this period? Is there anything that you went, you know what, the world is a little bit better?
People that I wouldn't have met without this.
The whole Zoom thing, yeah.
The whole, Zoom, but also the club and everything like that. There's people I would have never met, and then I somehow met them through this, and we're just vibing on the same level, and you're just the fact that we all clicked as well as we did.